Hey guys, Dr. D here with Alpha Omega Wellness. I'm really excited that I get to chat with my friend and patient here, Aaron. He was willing to come on here and just kind of share a little bit about his struggles that he had with depression, anxiety, even PTSD, and just talk about the treatments that we provide for that and how that has had an impact on his life. So, Aaron, thank you so much for coming in and being willing to come on camera and share a part of your story with us. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
So tell me a little bit about you. Married, kids, just tell me about Aaron.
Yeah, so I'm married, 37 years old. Don't have kids yet.
Okay.
Will one day when God decides that's the time.
Yeah.
2 little fur babies. I live on the north side of Indianapolis.
Okay.
I'm in medical sales. I used to help run political campaigns, and I was a clinical scientist for a while, and yeah.
Done a few things.
Yeah, I have a very eclectic resume.
I like it.
Yeah.
So we met like January or February or so, I think, of this year.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what was going on with you and how you found out about us and what made you reach out.
So I was suffering from severe PTSD, severe anxiety, and depression. And sadly, if you have PTSD, you also have depression.
Yeah.
It's just the way it works.
Yeah.
And I was flashbacks, nightmares. I would rage out over silly, stupid stuff. Just couldn't even. Suddenly, I would just get hit with be angry over the table didn't move right or what. I mean, just little things that would send me over the top. And so obviously I checked myself into therapy. And one of the therapists that I was dealing with, I dealt with 2 therapists and a psychiatrist. So had a patient that had actually come here.
Yeah.
And she said, I know you're more open to alternative stuff. Having been a clinical scientist and done research, I've seen how the sausage is made. I don't really trust pharmaceuticals anymore.
Yeah.
Because once you've seen behind the curtain, you're like, wait a minute. I don't think you're telling me the truth because I'm watching you fake this, and this. Anyway.
And then you want me to put that in my body?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, oh, wait a minute. 1 in 3 of your products gets pulled after approval? Something wrong with this. I was seeing other people had done similar types of treatments before. And I'd already been kind of thinking that way and looking into it.
All right.
And so when I found out, hey, there's this clinic on the south side, they've had great results, they're a Christian group, I was like, well, I'll contact them, see what I can find out. So, yeah.
So what was your struggle like? I mean, before coming in here, how were you impacted by the depression and the anxiety, the just random nightmares or flashbacks? How is that affecting your relationships, your work, just your enjoyment of life?
Yeah, I couldn't enjoy anything. My marriage had been great and then wasn't. It'd been really cool if somebody had told me 20 years ago, hey, if you these acute symptoms you have, if you don't resolve the deep underlying issues, 20 years later they can come roaring back, but I was not aware of that.
Yeah.
So most of my life I had really minor symptoms. I might have a nightmare here and there, some insomnia here and there. And I wasn't as emotionally connected, right? But it was livable.
Yeah.
And so I had, God had blessed me, and I was able, through what He had given me, build a decent life. And got all types of material success and helping in ministry and that kind of thing. And then suddenly, a year ago, around this time, symptoms just started coming back. And I got massive insomnia, couldn't sleep. I started having bouts of depression, flashbacks, nightmares, and they started just getting worse and worse and worse and worse to the point where everything just crashed.
So before a year ago, you weren't really struggling with a lot of depression. What about anxiety?
I did have anxiety.
Okay.
That was one thing that I had just kind of lived with, but it had been going on for so long that I just kind of didn't even realize it was there.
Yeah.
Looking back on it now, it's oh wait, I would wake up.
Yeah.
Just feeling, oh,
Right.
but I was just so used to it that it was like my normal, and
Okay.
I didn't even think about how badly it was affecting me.
Right.
And everybody around me, you know, most of the people in my life, you know, have been with me from like 24, 25 on.
Yeah.
Right. So they didn't know me before
Yeah.
everything that happened to me. So they just, that's just Aaron.
Yeah.
Right. And so I didn't even recognize it, but it was definitely there.
And then I feel like that you told me that, you know, going back a year or two, I think somebody had pointed out that you started making yourself more emotionally available,
Yeah.
more emotionally vulnerable
Yeah.
to your wife and like some godly men in your life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's when these symptoms really started coming back.
Yeah. So
So it's like you let your guard down.
yeah.
You brought down the facade a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. So if you back up a little bit, around my 30th birthday or so, I suddenly I had an experience where this guy was a jerk to me, and he was legitimately a jerk to me. But my reaction to it, I could start feeling, I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. And I was like, that's not normal.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute, hold on. So I went and got help and started doing emotional replacement therapy with a group of guys. It's actually that group of guys being the first little group that created Heart of Man on the north side of Indianapolis. And we did what we call heart groups, right? And it's really amazing what you can do with that, because even just a group of lay people can get together, follow those principles, and really see changes in their life.
Yeah.
And that started happening.
Yeah.
And I was able to get over some family of origin issues and stuff that had happened to me when I was a kid. I'd seen a lot of violence in my high school. It was not great. They moved a bunch of gangbangers in, and
Oh, wow.
yeah, it didn't go well. Almost killed somebody with my bare hands when I was
Oh, my gosh.
16 years old. That was fun. So yeah, I started dealing with those issues, and I was fine for a while. Saw a lot of help, and then I started helping other guys talk through their stuff and face up to their past and whatnot. And then it was really when I started helping other guys, and I became more and more emotionally available to them and my wife, that suddenly it was like I said, everything started breaking loose. Yeah.
Okay. So would you say that like your work was impacted by this, or any of your productivity?
So I had to step down from doing ministry work of any kind just to be able to focus enough to be able to do my job.
Okay.
And my sales numbers tanked.
Okay.
Luckily, I had have a great boss who I told him what was going on. This was happening, and he was just a great guy about it. So the VP, everybody, just really great about it, and they understood. And God really blessed me through that. The territory still grew.
Yeah, that's good.
So it wasn't like it was like all bad, but I could just do my job and try to survive.
What was your wife seeing during this time?
My poor wife. I mean, she was seeing. There was one point where like I totally just embarrassed myself in front of a whole bunch of people, and which of course embarrassed her, poor thing. And I was not always very nice to her, and not even meaning to, or even realizing it. Honestly, looking back on it, I was not the same person that she had dated and first married. It was not going well. Like I said, a lot of anger, a lot of disconnection, isolation, pulling back.
Well, I think that brings up a really good point, because when we're in that, because I've been there with the struggle with depression and just not being the best version of me, and seeing, my marriages implode, my family not being well cared for. But if you really step back and think about it, as much as what I think we all have to take personal responsibility for our decisions and how we treat people, the flip side of that is your brain was not healthy.
No.
Like, I think we have to stop thinking in terms of mental health, because that's so vague and nebulous, right? What's that even mean? Take some Prozac, do talk therapy. It's not like people are walking down the road and they just get, zapped by the depression or the bipolar bug, right? There's a root cause to that. And so if we think about in terms of brain health, when a person's struggling with depression and or anxiety, there's inflammation in the brain. And we talked about this a little bit when we first chatted. Like there's a decrease in the neural connections in the brain.
Yeah.
In those areas that involve like emotional regulation, memory formation, planning, decision making. And so it is true that like you were suffering the consequences of your brain not being healthy.
Yeah.
But so is everyone around you.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And the paradox is, like, that doesn't really excuse those behaviors, but we start to understand it.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, with what we see when people go through these treatments and the brain gets healthy, they just change and it becomes the newer, better version of them. But it's really, I think it's the version of them God created them to be. It's just a matter of like, your brain wasn't healthy. There was, it's just like if you cut your arm and it's getting infected and there's redness, you can see that.
Yeah.
You understand that that's not healthy. Same thing in our brain that we can't see. So tell me a little bit about when you started the treatments here for these symptoms, like what are the things that you started noticing?
So immediately, like the first time I went through treatment, I could actually feel, I know it sounds weird to say it, I could actually feel changes in my brain. Like it felt physically different.
Yeah.
And that first treatment, I suddenly had a peace that I just had not had in a very, 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 since I was a child.
Like just a peace in your life.
Yeah. Just like there just wasn't that background anxiety. I didn't feel the need to, like, when something would happen that would make me angry, like especially within the first couple treatments, it was, I remember there was a thing I had built for a friend. Like it's like a model thing that I put together, and I couldn't find it. And normally I would have to go like, okay, go to the other room, and I'm gonna, you know, right?
Yeah.
And I went to do that, and I realized, wait, I don't need to.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like, I'll find it later. It's whatever.
Right.
You know, and normally that would have frustrated me to the point where I would have gone and like, you know, and no, it was cool.
I remember that you came in for your second or third treatment, and it was on a Monday or Tuesday, and you said, yeah, I texted some buddies of mine this past Saturday and said, so wait, not waking with crushing anxiety, that's just what normal people do.
Yeah, exactly.
Remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that.
So I just thought that was pretty profound, that for you, that was just so far removed from what your reality had been.
Yeah, 20 years. That was,
and it was just like, no, that's just
normal.
That's what people deal with.
Yeah.
Then you start learning like, oh, no, other people don't deal with that. So
yeah, it's like apparently the normal people out there don't have to deal with this. It's like, oh, okay, well that explains a lot.
And I happen to remember your depression score when you came in was a 19, which on that scale is moderately severe depression. I think at 20, it's when it's classified as severe.
And it would have been worse before then because I had 6 months of talk therapy and drugs before that.
Yeah.
So
your anxiety score was a 17. That scale is different. So that was severe anxiety. And I remember before your fourth treatment, your depression score had gone to 5, so now that's down at mild. I think at 4 it's minimal in the rating system, but your anxiety score had gone to 0.
Yeah.
It was a donut.
Yeah.
Meaning, here's 7 questions, 0 to 3. How often are you dealing with these over the past 2 weeks? And all 7 questions were a 0.
Yeah.
Whereas when you had first come in, those all totaled up to 17.
Yeah.
And that was just in a matter of 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah. Miraculous.
Yeah, I mean, it's profoundly impactful, like just what it does. And again, I mean, I just think for the people who are watching or listening to this, it's just a matter of getting your brain healthy. Like Aaron with a healthy brain doesn't struggle with random waves of anxiety and flashbacks.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember that before your 6th treatment, I said, so how are things? And I think at that point your depression score was even down to a 2. And you said, it's like I don't have PTSD anymore.
Yeah, because I don't.
You said that the severe symptoms that you had had for the past year were just gone, but even those low-level symptoms that you had had for 18 or 19 years.
Gone, yeah.
So what can you tell me about that? What's it like now for you in your life?
Yeah, so, you know, I'll just use some practical, like day-to-day things. Like, if I need to have a hard conversation with my wife, for example, like, hey, I'm not cool with this, or hey, can we talk about this or that? There's no underlying like fear involved. And when the underlying fear is gone, that anxiety is gone, like a lot of anger comes from fear.
Yeah.
Right? Anger comes from either pride or fear,
Mm-hmm.
one of the two, and it's usually fear.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we have those conversations, there's no...
You can stay on point.
I stay on point
about the issue.
and just be calm about it.
Yeah.
And just really with anybody. Or, also when you don't have that anxiety, you are much less likely to misinterpret things.
100%. So I'm 3 credits shy from having my master's in pastoral counseling. And one of the things that I learned in that program is that when we feel that conversation move from our head to our gut, right? And you feel that.
Yeah, you do. You absolutely
the tremulousness, the palpitations,
the knot right here. Yeah.
And that's when our logical brain is saying goodbye to the conversation.
Yep.
And we go back to that primitive brain where we're in fight or flight. So you're exactly right. We misinterpret, we misjudge what the other person's telling us. Mm-hmm. We're not focusing on the issue. We're not thinking clearly, because the level-headed, clear Bonney in a conversation of conflict with my wife, I'm thinking long-term, where do I want this to be? Well, I want us to have a happy, healthy, loving relationship.
Yep.
So what I'm about to say, does it contribute to that? So there can still be conflict. There should be conflict. In fact, John Gottman, done a lot of marriage research, he's actually talked about how the happiest marriages, they're not conflict free. They feel better after a conflict than before. Why is that? It's because there's resolution of issues.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what you've seen happen, is as your brain is healthy, you don't switch into that primitive form of thinking where it's like fight or flight. I've got to establish my dominance here. I've got to win, right? And so for you, for us, like when we have conflict and we can stay on point and discuss the issue without attacking the character of the other person, and so Megan and I make it a point that we don't say things that we wish we could take back.
Yeah.
But it's because of being able to stay in that space of like, hey, I still love you.
And when you're in fight or flight all the time,
right,
you don't have that choice.
Right.
And that was the real problem I was having in my marriage. I was just in constant fight or flight.
Yeah.
It just never ending fight or flight.
And not even because of her.
No, it had nothing to do with her.
Yeah.
It was just all the time.
Yeah.
And it didn't take much to suddenly make me like, oh my gosh, and then once the fear hits and the anger comes out and it all goes sideways.
So has anyone around you noticed a change?
Multiple people.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
So just because I stepped down from doing ministry stuff for a while doesn't mean I'm not connected with those guys.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of guys that I know, and some of them are harder to deal with than others, right? Yeah. And there's multiple guys where we would sometimes butt heads and whatnot, and even they would be like, "Wow, you're not like." This conversation's going way differently than it would be in the past, and other people like, wow, that would normally drive you up a wall and you're not even responding. I'm like, yeah, because I don't
Where's
care.
volatile Aaron?
Yeah, where's that guy, right? And that's what I was talking about, something like the lower level symptoms had always been there, right? It would, in the past, it just took way longer to get there, right? Or at that point, it was just like that. Yeah. But now it's just like, I'm good, whatever. Like, that's fine.
What has your wife noticed?
I think one thing she said is like, we were talking to another therapist that was checking in, and they asked her like, how are you, like, how are you seeing? She said like he's a completely different person now. Wow. And it's, hopefully, things move in the right direction. That I know I've just noticed she's a little more willing to talk to me about stuff now, awesome. And she's, we're headed in that right direction, and. I hope that she feels this way. I think she would tell you this, that she feels a lot more safe around me. And it's just noticed that I'm not.
How do you put a price? How do you put a price on that part of your life being better?
Yeah, I one of the things when I was talking to my boss about it, talking about put a price on things, it's like my marriage isn't going well right now, and I already made the decision. It's like I'm gonna go do this treatment stuff, talk therapy, psychiatrist,
whatever it takes.
this treatments, etc. And if that means I get fired, I'd rather lose my job than my marriage.
Amen, brother.
You know, straight, I can go get a new job.
Yeah.
You know, I've got the performance numbers to go to another company and say, hey, you know, and they'll hire me. But yeah, you have to have the right priorities. And you know, if you don't have a moral foundation, understand what those priorities are, get one. I suggest the Bible, and more than suggest the Bible. But I mean, it goes God, and then your marriage.
Yeah.
I mean, straight up.
Even before kids.
Yeah, God, marriage. And, you know, I was getting myself, I will say this as well as an aside, one thing God really did do through this whole experience was completely change the way I look at the Bible in this whole experience. So I want to make something very clear. Yeah. As bad as things got, God used that to make my relationship with Him way better.
Oh, that's what He does.
And that's what He does, right?
He's masterful.
Right, exactly. So I really felt like this entire experience, like my relationship with God, got even better the entire time. So the next thing was my marriage. Yeah. And you can't put a price on that. Like you just can't. Like, and I think we see the reality of that today with all the broken marriages and broken homes. Yeah. You can see walking outside how messed up everybody is in the head. You know, it's.
And then if you go back to that point of like, where is life if everybody has a healthy brain?
Yeah.
I feel like road rage goes away. Yeah. I feel like addiction starts going away.
Yeah.
I mean, I had my own addiction 20 years ago, and I know that if I was able to handle life differently because I was healthier, that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Right? And then, you know, children are raised differently. Yeah. Homes are preserved.
You don't see people screaming in the streets, lighting things on fire.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's like, I just think everything changes when we have people that are just, their brain is healthy. And it doesn't make the world all rainbows and butterflies. We live in a broken, sinful world. There's always going to be trouble, but I just need to be able to be resilient in the suck.
Yeah, exactly.
There's days that are going to suck.
Yep.
There's days that are just not great. And Megan is like, she's the perpetual helper, and she's like, what can I do to help you? And some days I'm just like, I don't think anything. I think I just have to sit in this today and work through it, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When I'm healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
yeah, it's funny you say that because I, after the treatments, it was like a month later, had some family conflict. Not with my wife, but parents and whatnot. Yeah. And I'm driving down the road, and I suddenly feel it. I have a higher L score, which is a personality trait where I think first and I feel later, right? So I had this conflict, and so the next day I'm driving down the road going to see a client, and suddenly I start feeling this anxiety. I'm like, oh no, is the anxiety coming back?
Right. Yeah.
And then I realized, oh wait, no, I just had some conflict.
Yeah.
With my family.
Yeah.
And I prayed about it, thought about it, and then processed it, and it went away like a normal person.
Yeah. We should feel those things.
Yeah, you need to feel those things, right?
Feel some anger and some worry. Like, I mean, you need something to keep you motivated, because
just
those emotions
dealt with it. It's,
it can tell us like, hey, this is a warning flag here. There's something that needs to be dealt with, right?
Yeah.
But to go nuclear or to spiral out of control, that's what I don't want to do.
Yeah, yeah. That was another thing I used to do. If I would get into a conflict with my wife, I'd shame spiral. You know, because I may have done something, realized it, and then I would just shame spiral, which is not helpful. At all. It's worse.
It's very self-defeating.
Don't do that anymore.
Yeah. Awesome. What about work? Like, do you feel like you're more productive at work, or do you feel like things
are... So I will say, like, going through the treatments, it did cause me to be less productive for a few weeks.
Okay.
Right. But I told my boss that, hey, this is probably what's going to happen. And again, they were cool with it. And now that I've gotten past that, I'm getting back in the same swing of things. Yeah. And now I would say like my production levels are getting back to where they were beforehand, which were pretty high.
So before a year ago.
Yeah. But now there's not I don't feel like, oh, I have to do this right now. I can actually prioritize things that make sense to prioritize them at the right time.
You're like Neo in the Matrix. You just see things differently.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I don't have to do this expense report this minute. I literally checking my schedule. Like I can actually take a break and then deal with this tomorrow. Yeah. Or if there is a problem that needs to be dealt with, it's like no, I can prioritize this. Like I can sit here and eat my sandwich and then deal with the problem, not suddenly not run myself ragged. So
that's awesome. So maybe less pressure from things like that, and just as much productivity. So yeah, that's great. So any regrets from doing these treatments?
No.
Okay.
No, in fact, it's kind of funny. It's become a joke now with my friends.
Yeah.
Because there are people that I've met, that I've talked to, who have started asking me about it.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that would probably help you.
Yeah.
I know some of them come here.
Yeah.
Obviously I'm not gonna name names,
Right.
but
Right.
but
Right.
I know for a fact some of them have come
Yeah.
here. And I, look, I'm not gonna lie to people. Of course, there were some downsides. Usually for me personally, it would kind of wipe out my productivity for the day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes, if I had a conversation right after it, the memory might not totally be there.
Right.
And okay, so what? Would you rather have lifetime problems, or would you rather have okay, I think we did over a 3-week period, right? So for a 3-week period, every other day, productivity kind of.
Right.
But so what?
Right.
But
you're investing in yourself for that
Exactly.
long-term gain. And
Exactly.
it sounds like for you, the return on investment has just been gigantic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what if there's another person out there that's kind of in that place where you were, or maybe not quite as bad. Maybe they're just kind of dealing with things, but it's a constant battle. What advice would you give that person?
Don't minimize the problems. Stop telling yourself it's okay. Stop pretending oh, I can get by. It's not that big a deal. Stop it. We all want to do that, especially men.
Yeah.
Men are especially bad at this.
Absolutely.
And on one hand, I do understand that there are a lot of people out there who are being told they have psychological problems they don't actually have, and they're really just nervous and they need some coaching.
Right.
I get that.
Yeah.
In fact, I see that a lot.
Yeah.
However, you know what you're doing. Just look yourself in the mirror. You know what you're doing. You're looking at yourself. You're feeling this anxiety. You're feeling this depression. You're not talking about it, and you're just, I can suck it up and move on. And the reality is, you can't.
And how much mental real estate are we giving to that?
Yeah.
I think when we're not constantly trying to keep that depression and or anxiety and PTSD symptoms at bay, now there's so much more space available up here to focus on being creative, or
Exactly.
how can I, what do I need to do for my business to grow it, or how can I invest in my family, instead of just being that constant 20% of my active brain is just kind of keeping us at bay.
Exactly. And also, I want to make an agency part of this as well.
Yeah.
One of the problems of why I didn't go get help was there was a pride issue there.
Yeah.
And pride in that, I didn't think people would believe me what happened in my story. Is because it's pretty nuts. It's pretty wild, right? There's a whole lot of stuff most people who know me have no clue about it.
Right.
Although I'm being open about it now. And I just didn't think people would believe me. And I didn't want that ostracization. I didn't want to feel people thought I was crazy.
Because then you're worried it'll make you feel worse.
Yeah, exactly. But there's a little bit of pride there too, right? And it was understandable fear, but you need to step out in faith. And honestly, and then there's also a bit of I can take it, I can deal with it.
Yeah.
That's just pride, man.
Yeah.
That's you just being prideful. Let that go. And because why do you want this monkey on the back for the rest of your life? Why would you do that? Makes no sense.
So you'd recommend the treatment? It sounds like.
Yeah, obviously. And I do recommend it to
Yeah.
people who come across. People in my sales team, they've noticed a difference in me. They've asked about it, and there's been people who, in their own states where they live, have sought it out.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I just think it has such a potential to really help people heal. And you still have to do the work.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
I wouldn't recommend just doing the treatments.
Yeah.
I would also recommend doing some kind of talk therapy, and then while you're doing the treatments, focusing on that.
Yeah.
I would also highly recommend getting to the Bible and focusing on that, while you're doing the treatments.
Yeah.
It's a huge deal. You get a lot more out of it. And I have to say this: there are other places like this. So these treatments are new, and there are other places that don't have the success rate that you have here.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that is because of the spiritual focus. I do believe it's because of the focus on God here.
I don't disagree with that.
And I think, don't get me wrong, the other places, I think they're helping people. But a lot of times, like my psychiatrist I've been talking to is another clinic here in Indianapolis. I don't remember the name of it. I'm sure they're really trying to help people, but a lot of their people keep having to come back every 3 months, etc. Whereas that's not so much the case here.
Yeah.
And I think that has a lot to do with, one, what God's doing here,
Yeah.
but also like what are you focusing on and how are you being directed while you're doing the treatment? And I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, because we definitely don't shy away from those spiritual discussions as they come up, and we hold space for people so that we can kind of process what they experienced and help them unpack that. And I always recommend that people do counseling, but not everybody does. And I still see the treatments helping.
Sure.
Because I do think they get a little bit of counseling from us.
Yeah.
And I also know that, I encourage them, like, read something that develops you personally, spiritually.
Yep.
Journal your thoughts.
Yeah.
Write a gratitude journal, like whatever that is, because the brain is growing.
Yeah.
Right. And it's able to lay down new neural pathways and to really just kind of reframe some things that we've been through.
Yeah.
Where we go, oh, that thing that happened to me when I was 8, it really wasn't my fault.
Yeah, exactly.
My parents' divorce, it really wasn't my fault. And I've carried that with me for 30 years or whatever. And so I think I always encourage people to take advantage of just the changes that the brain is enjoying during this. But,
yeah, exactly. And I think it's one of those deals, like if you did the treatments without that stuff, the dendrites are still going to regrow together, right? Yeah. But you're not going to get nearly as much out of it.
Right.
And I think that's probably why other people have to keep coming back, because they're not resolving those base issues.
You're telling our secret sauce.
Yeah.
I love it though. Yeah, and I'm glad that you noticed that.
Yeah, so.
Anything that you can think of that we didn't discuss?
Off the top of my head, no.
Okay.
Like I said, I think it's important for everybody to do research and whatnot and look around. Like even though I'm not having symptoms, I decided to do one more just out of pure, because in other areas they found like people who do that just have a better outcome overall.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So it's just don't be afraid if you do decide to go down this route. Don't be afraid to do what you can to customize it for yourself, and don't feel like you have to put so much of like impetus on I'm going to do it just the way everybody else does.
Right.
Like be open to doing what you need to do for you.
Yeah.
So
I love it, man. Thank you so much. You've really blessed
pleasure,
us.
man.
You've blessed the people watching or listening, and I think that your story is going to touch somebody's life. So
I hope so. I really do, because the last thing that I think I would want to see, and I know is the last thing God would want to see, is like pointless pain.
Right.
Oh,
He wants to repurpose our pain.
Exactly. God will use your pain to help other people even. So
I mean, I had an opiate addiction 20 years ago. We opened 6 years ago as a faith-based opiate addiction treatment office.
Exactly.
I suffered through broken marriages, and now I've worked on the counseling program so that we can help people in that space. I've suffered with depression most of my adult life. Like you, I would now consider that to be in remission.
Yeah.
And so, I completely agree. He wants to use us for how he's helped us heal.
100%.
Man, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, brother.
God bless you, brother.
Good to see you.
So I hope you guys found that discussion very helpful for you. I'm very passionate about these treatments that we give because obviously I just see such a huge difference in our patients over a matter of just a few weeks. We find that we consistently see a reduction in depression and anxiety scores by about 75% in just 2 or 3 weeks. And so if you or someone you know is struggling with depression, anxiety, PTSD, please reach out to us at 317-300-4091. You could call or text that number. Please remember to hit the subscribe button here so that whether it's the podcast or the YouTube channel, you're subscribed so I can keep bringing you more and more good content. And you can always feel free to just shoot us an email as well, Dr. D at alphaomegawellness.com. But we'd love to have an opportunity to just sit down with you and chat and see if this treatment is a good fit so that you can see the changes that our other patients are seeing and so that you can become our next success story. So God bless you guys. I love you. Let me know how we can help you.